Union.
Commonwealth Park will be protected by an Act of Parliament to ensure that any future government that might think of doing away with it will have to change legislation first. This was confirmed by the Chief Minister, who was speaking to us about the importance of having a proper green space in the city centre and on the progress being made on what is a GSLP Liberal flagship project. Fabian Picardo also spoke to our reporter Jonathan Scott about his satisfaction at how the Development and Planning Commission worked this week, and first about his recent trip to Malta.
Well, of course, it's hugely important to travel to European capitals, given the number of issues that there are which affect Gibraltar in the European Union. And many of the countries that we are visiting have votes in the European Council, and these things will be relevant, of course, when Gibraltar issues come to the Council. The first that is obvious to people is the issue of aviation and the exclusion of Gibraltar Airport. So a lot of issues were discussed with colleagues in Malta, including those which have a specific current European flavour, but also issues, of course, about future links and the opportunities that there are for having even closer commercial, political and human links with Malta.
Will we see movement on that in the not-too-distant future, you think?
Well, we certainly hope so. It's something that we've been working on already. The trip was the culmination in some areas. When we're ready to make announcements, we will, and I hope that they will be positive announcements soon about further cooperation which will benefit the whole community. That's what travelling is about. When the Chief Minister travels, he doesn't travel for a photo opportunity. He travels to improve Gibraltar's commercial and human links with other European countries or other countries around the world, and of course the political links.
The Nature Group has overcome a major obstacle in its bid to reopen the Sullage waste tanks at the North Mole. 3 years after the North Mole fire, the Development and Planning Commission has approved planning permission for the project. However, the Environmental Safety Group voted against the application, and the Minister for the Environment abstained from voting. The company will also need to convince the government to grant them a licence before it can open.
The North Mole Sullage tanks were closed down in May 2011 following the infamous fire which kept the emergency services pinned to the harbour overnight and which resulted in the death of a worker. The Nature Group has been through 2 hazard operations reviews, a report commissioned by the government into the proposed reopening, an environmental impact assessment and a town planning process in order to get to this stage. The company argues that the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships requires that governments provide waste facilities for ships to discharge, and that waste management is a key requirement for ship certification within the Green Award scheme, of which the Gibraltar Port is a member. Following the publication of the Environmental Impact Assessment, Nature presented to the DPC a project using the most advanced technology available, guaranteeing best practice, and an end to the problems with fumes and smells which residents of the area used to suffer from. The company said it was strongly committed to transparency, and even recommended the creation of a local liaison committee to provide feedback and to hold them to account. But it wasn't plain sailing. The Commission subjected the company's directors to a 1-hour grilling on the technical details of the proposal and demanded an undertaking that it would cease operations if complaints of odours were found to be justified. For his part, Environment Minister John Cortes, who ultimately abstained from voting on the proposal, said the Commission was nervous about this proposal because of what had happened in the past. In his ministerial capacity, he warned the company that if it continued to have problems, it would be in trouble. And ESG spokeswoman Janet Howard said she was frustrated by the limited remit of the DPC and pointed out that there are wider moral issues which shouldn't be ignored. She said the DPC shouldn't carry on considering the application as if nothing had happened, and said there was a court case still in process. All other members voted in favour of the application, but the Nature Group now needs to apply for a licence from the government before it can restart operations.
And we'll be back with more of this week's news after the break.
Faith may provide many answers to people's lives, but in turn, these raise even more. Join me and my guests as we discuss these many questions of faith.
Welcome back. A Guardia Civil launch had to be towed to Algeciras port after it ran out of fuel inside British Gibraltar territorial waters on Wednesday morning. The vessel came into Gibraltar waters and was challenged by the Royal Navy with a warning. However, the vessel then issued a distress call, and the Gibraltar Squadron's priority then became providing assistance. Two other Spanish vessels, the Rio Tormes and a Guardia Civil Rib, then sailed into Gibraltar waters and towed the Rio Sedena back to Algeciras. The Foreign Office has confirmed it will be filing a complaint to Madrid, as it does whenever any illegal incursions into Gibraltar waters is reported. The police authority says the RGP is aware of the issues expressed by the public and are constantly working on them. It follows the findings of the authority's latest public consultation survey, which highlighted underage drinking and drug misuse as some of the main concerns. The GPA's Mandy Gallero says although mainly positive with confidence and overall satisfaction in the police is going up, these comments are now incorporated into the policing plan for the year to ensure the RGP tackles the problems. Davina Barbara asked the GPA's Mandy Gallero about the overall message to be taken from this year's survey results.
Overall, I think very positive for the RGP. Confidence in the police has risen, as is overall satisfaction with the police, as are the, I think 70% of respondents were in agreement with the priorities that the GPA set out in the policing plan for last year. So overall, very positive.
The topmost concerns are underage drinking and dangerous driving, with misuse of drugs also high on the list. Why do people feel these continue to be a problem?
Well, I think especially whereas young is concerned in drugs, I think it's a problem that's worldwide. Gibraltar's not sheltered from those problems, unfortunately, and it is a concern to the general public.
People's confidence and satisfaction in the police has risen. Why do you feel this is?
I think the service that they're giving is one that we can be proud of. There's always room for improvement within any organisation, and I know the RGP continually strive to improve their service and their contact with the general public. But on the whole, I think it, as I said before, it is a very positive result for the RGP.
Nonetheless, 43% of people, as opposed to 46% last year, believe there has been improvement in services over the last 12 months. To what can this be attributed?
Last year was the first year of Eddie Yoma's commissioner. It was his first year, and I think there was probably more differences. There was more new introductions, neighbourhood policing. Possibly it's people are a little bit more used to those kind of things. Social media, communication via social media. People are obviously less aware of more changes than they were last year. So maybe that's the reason.
You mentioned neighbourhood policing. Is this an initiative that people are happy with? Is there more they'd like to see done?
I think it is an area where people have given very positive feedback about the neighbourhood policing. But I think, again, it is an area where they've made a good start, but more could be done. I think the feeling that I got from the comments was people would like to see more foot patrols rather than police officers in cars, and more opportunity to interact with the public and to voice their opinion. And so it is a good start, as I say, but I think more can be done.
As well as the categories demarcated by the survey, there's also a comments section where people can put their concerns forward. What are the issues that have cropped up?
Yes, certainly. One of the gripes that people like to comment on is dog fouling. Also noise pollution. That is something that people have. We've seen an increase in comments about dog fouling and noise pollution. And the public would like to see more done and more consequences for those that do break the law.
How is the survey put together, from the categories and questions to the distribution of questionnaires to the collating of information? What's the process?
The process is in really October we start looking to see if there are any changes. We don't like to change anything too drastically because we like to see a continuity and being able to look back on past surveys and seeing the results and compare them to this year's. Once we've printed the actual survey, we then send it out to 1,500 addresses, completely picked at random, and envelopes are sent with the surveys, and hopefully they reply using the envelopes provided. We send them a reminder. We also spend a couple of days on the main street, the members of the Gibraltar Police Authority, and we hand them out, and it's an opportunity to meet the public, and some people do express some concerns and some issues that they like to talk about, and which we will take on board. And once we collate all the comments and all the data, the statistics, we will then try and as much as possible put that into our next year's policing plan, which is in the process of being finalised.
This week, Benjamin Marache told the Supreme Court that Marache & Co. always kept office money in the client account to avoid paying tax on it. He said they did this on the advice of their external accountants, who cannot be named following a court ruling. Benjamin Marache, along with his brothers Isaac and Solomon and Leanne Turnbull, have pleaded not guilty to 2 charges of conspiracy to defraud millions of pounds of client monies. Answering questions from his own lawyer, Dorian Lovell-Pag QC, Benjamin Marache said he always thought that if they had enough assets and enough money, there wouldn't be a problem. He is now being cross-examined by Isaac Marache's lawyer, John Cooper QC, who put it to the defendant that he was referred in the office as the stitcher, somebody who would stitch people up in business and personally. Benjamin Marache denied this and also denied that he was an arrogant man. The trial continues. Also this week, we found out that this year's fair will again be held at the Naval Grounds. Princess Caroline's Battery's refurbishment was completed, and we learned that former Supertramp frontman Roger Hodgson, Spandau Ballet's Tony Hadley, and Brit-nominated singer-songwriter John Newman were joining the lineup of this year's Gibraltar Music Festival. For the rest of this week's news, you can head over to our website, gbc.gi/news. Don't forget to tune in, of course, to Radio Gibraltar and GBC Television throughout the week for the very latest local news. And you can also follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. From the news team, good night.